Hey guys, this is 3.6 Washington's presidency. Go ahead and get your title and EQ and all that good stuff down, and we'll drop some knowledge on you. If you're not ready, push pause because here we go to the first slide. All right, so America, 1790. I know it's been a long time because we spent forever on the US Constitution and how all the parts of our government work, but you gotta stretch your brain way back to like forever ago when we talked about how we won the Revolutionary War. Woohoo! All right, so we've won. And remember, we had the Articles of Confederation, which was a big, fat, epic failure, right? So we're looking around saying we need another form of government, and we end up creating the US Constitution, which we spent a long time studying, yeah? And one of the things about the US Constitution is, hey, we need a president. All right, so in comes George Washington, America's first president of the United States. All right, now here's the thing about him. We all look at him like he is the best thing since sliced bread. He is beloved and revered. He is considered one of the best presidents ever, and he was awesome. Yes, it's true. But he did have his enemies, just like anybody else. For example, him and Thomas Jefferson didn't get along so well. Yeah, kind of like a frenemy. You know what I mean? Also, Thomas Paine. Remember Common Sense? Yeah. Thomas Paine actually wished and prayed, like prayed for George Washington's death because he didn't want him to lead the country. So, yeah, there are people not on the George Washington bandwagon, but for the most part, most of the United States of America is in love with George Washington. He is the reason a lot of people feel that we won the Revolutionary War and have a country to begin with. So when we adopt the US Constitution and we need the very first president of the United States, well, there's really just one obvious choice. No one even runs against the guy, okay? He just unanimously, pretty much, easy peasy, wins the first seat as the first United States president. Now, he's got a big responsibility on his shoulders. We have never had a president before, and we are coming off of a monarch situation. Nobody wanted another King George III on our hands, right? So he has no precedent of somebody to follow, okay? Nobody had preceded him as president. So what does this president gig look like anyway? A lot of what George Washington does is going to set the framework, the groundwork for future presidents and how they're going to behave, what they're going to consider is presidential, and their duties and, responsibilities and such. For example, in the beginning, we didn't even know what to call the guy. There was a huge debate about what to call him. Your Majesty, this, that, the other thing. Ultimately, Mr. President was decided on because it seemed to be more humble sounding than something like Your Majesty or Your Honor. So anyway, Washington's going to be the guy that really sets up a lot of the duties and behavior of how presidents are going to act. All right, so he's going to define what it means to be the commander-in-chief of our country, to be POTUS. Remember, POTUS is President of the United States. Okay, a little bit about him. Something that's cool about George Washington is he gives up power when he doesn't have to. Ultimately, he's going to retire. We'll get to that in a minute. When he could have ran again and he would have totally gotten in for another term. But he only serves 2, and he says, sayonara, peace out. He wants to go retire on his farm. He's known for throwing really lavish, awesome parties. Guy knew how to party, all right? And he's known for being a really good equestrian, which means he was awesome at riding horses. And back in the day, that was like the equivalent, being an awesome equestrian, to being like a super well-known, famous sports star. Okay, that was like the height of athleticism, was being good on a horse. So there's Georgie for you, got some good qualities to him. All right, so he's knows that he can't govern the country by himself. Obviously, he's going to need some help, right? And so he is the first president, and he's the one that creates the cabinet. He needs helpers. Now, today we have a lot more cabinet members than we did back then. Country's smaller, less states, less stuff going on. So he creates a 4 cabinet member little helping faction that's going to help him out during his presidency. And 2 of the people that we care about for our purposes in his cabinet are Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. Now, you might remember me saying he was not so friendly with Thomas Jefferson, but that didn't stop him from employing Thomas Jefferson. He wanted TJ's difference of opinion and viewpoints. George Washington understood to be a good leader, you didn't just need everybody around you being yes men, people who would just do whatever you wanted. You needed people around you that were going to challenge you and come up with different ideas and have varying opinions, because that's democracy, right? That's how America works. And so, you know, he wanted to be successful and the best leader he could be. So he wanted people around who was going to, you know, look at things differently than he might. All right, so you wrote down Q1, America's first president. You highlighted it yellow. You've gotten all the information down. And, whoa, did I just like disappear on you? Because for me, you guys just disappeared. So if you did, it was my screensaver. All right, let's keep going. I'm not going to talk about left-hand side questions, guys. You know you need to write them down all the way through this PowerPoint. Make sure you write down your questions on the left based off of the information you're putting down on the right. If you need more time, press pause because here we go. You got some video clips. They will be included in the area that this is in. You can also pull them up on the PowerPoint. I would recommend you watch at least a couple from each place that they've got video clips, guys. A lot of test information, good review. Make sure you understand the concepts of what's going on. All right, so he is now president of the United States. Meanwhile, across the planet in France, there is trouble a-brewing, okay? Kind of inspired by our fight for independence, France is now on the hunt for their own independence and change in government, okay? And so the French Revolution is brewing over in France. We'll come back to that. All right, so Thomas Jefferson and our boy Hamilton over there talking about how, hey, they want to be us. They're not us yet. They're working on it. Okay. Okay. Here's the deal. We just fought the American Revolution. I know it seems like we talked about it ages ago, but in our timeline, it was not that long ago. We have huge American debt because wars cost money, right? And so we're in a pile of debt. We owe $54 million, which is like a gazillion dollars in today's money. And we also owe money to foreign countries on top of that, like France, okay, who's now fighting in a war. All right, and so here's the deal. If we don't pay our debts to people within the United States we owe money to, and to foreign countries who helped us out, like France, that we owe money to, they're not going to take us very seriously as a country. Like, you know, get your stuff together, man. You need to pay us back this debt. When you loan somebody money, you expect it back. All right, so people would be reluctant to do business with us, and that's really going to hurt our economy unless we can figure out what to do with this debt. All right, so keep that in mind. Highlight, highlight, underline, underline, all that jazz. Make sure you got your left-hand side question. So Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, he comes up with a plan on what we're going to do to fix this problem. Okay, so his plan is kind of like a 3-pronged plan. He decides that the federal government is going to take on the state's war debts. So no matter what state you're from the 13 states, the federal government, remember the national level government, is going to take on that debt. How we're going to do that is we're going to take out a loan. And we're going to pay that loan back by taxing the people, which we get into in another PowerPoint. So some people are going to be cool with that, some people aren't. But anyway, Hamilton's plan is we're going to take on all the state's war debts and pay them all off and make sure that the U.S. starts raising revenues, raising money, getting our economy rolling in a good direction. Okay, he knew that he's a Federalist, okay? So Alexander Hamilton is all about federal government, strong national government. He knew that the nation needed a single economic system For example, how we're going to pay this debt back should be in control of federal government, according to him, because all the states doing their own thing and some people trying to pay it back and other states ignoring their debts and all this stuff, that was dangerous. That was not a good sign to the outside world that, you know, they should take America seriously. So he also thought that by, you know, taking care of this debt issue, that it's going to give people a reason to support the federal government, because if the federal government take on our debt and we fail, the federal government fails, then we are going to be a laughingstock and not everybody's going to get their money back, and we need support. So if we're all on the same page and we're all rooting for the debts to get paid back, you know, then you're going to get support for the federal government. All right, so we're going to tax people in order to be able to pay those loans back, like I was saying. So here's the problem, though. Some states, as I mentioned, had already started paying back their debt. Other states hadn't really started dealing with it at all. And some states owed a whole bunch of debt, like in the north, where most of the fighting happened, while the southern states didn't owe as much debt on the whole. So if we're going to now combine all of this debt as a federal thing we're going to do, and everybody across the country is going to equally help pay it back through taxes, how is that fair? If we already paid our debt off in our state, why do we now have to get taxed to help pay off the national level debt? Or if we have a small amount of debt compared to some of the states that had a big amount of debt, why is it fair we should get taxed the same as them? Because we're trying to, you know, pay off this loan through taxes so we can pay everybody back. So, you know, some people were a supporter of this plan because we put America on the same page and we all are going to root for us to succeed. But some people don't like this plan because some people felt like it wasn't fair. Most of these people coming from the South. Okay. All right. Draw a line, highlight, left-hand side question. Here we go. Don't forget to watch those video clips. Important stuff on there, guys. Don't ignore those. Okay. So here's the deal. Remember that Alexander Hamilton is one of the people in Washington's cabinet. Well, another one is Jefferson. Hamilton and Jefferson both have Washington's ear. And so they're presenting their ideas all the time to President George Washington. And so you just heard Hamilton's idea. Now here's the deal. Jefferson pretty much completely disagrees with it. So Washington has Hamilton in one hand saying like, here's this great plan, right? And on the other hand, he's got Jefferson going, no, 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 no. Because remember, Jefferson was a Democratic Republican and he did not like the idea of big federal government. Things like the federal government taking over state-based loans was not in his wheelhouse. Jefferson did not like that idea. He was afraid of things like tyranny. We're giving too much power to the federal government by always letting federal government do stuff all the time. So Jefferson said no. But here's the thing. Hamilton wanted Jefferson's support, okay? Because if we're all on the same page, we're going to be able to sell it to the American people easier, right? So come on, Jefferson, TJ, you got to get on my side, says Hamilton. All right. But Jefferson was holding pretty firm. He wanted the states responsible for their own debts, okay? But he was open to compromise. Hey, Hamilton, I will support your plan that the federal government should take over all of this war debt if you support my idea, says TJ, okay? My idea, says Jefferson, that we should move the nation's capital to the south instead of it being in the north. Why does that matter? Because, you know, the moving and shaking and meetings and politics and stuff are going to happen in the capital, guys. So if the capital's closer to where you're located, and Thomas Jefferson's from the South, he's, you know, he owns a big old plantation, right? He's from Virginia. He wants the action happening in his backyard. So he said, let's move it south. Hamilton really wants his financial plan to pass, so they do in fact decide to deal with each other, handshake on it, right? And here's what happens. Hamilton gets his financial plan. Jefferson's going to support him. We're going to have states all, you know, combine their debt together, and the federal government's going to take care of it through a loan, which we're going to pay off by taxing the American people, no matter how much your state owed or didn't owe. And in return, TJ, Jefferson, he gets his way about a capital, which is now going to be Washington, D.C., which, you know, decades and decades later, it's still in Washington, D.C., right? So that's how it gets there. Yeah, Washington never lived in the White House, not done being built until into Adams's presidency, who's president number 2. All right, guys, this is the end of part 1. If you are finished here, great and awesome. You need to move on to part 2 of this particular PowerPoint lesson, the 3.6 lesson. See you in part 2. Peace out.